When I was first learning how to play the guitar, I would learn other people's songs and their solos as much as possible. And sometimes I would even chase specific pieces of gear in order to sound as close as possible to my favourite guitarists. However, when it actually came to the time of playing their songs and their solos on the instrument, even when I was playing things note for note, there was still something that sounded off. I didn't sound like my favourite musicians, and I didn't really know what it was. I'm sure many of you can also relate to this experience of learning how to play a song note for note, but still, things are kind of not quite right. Well, the answer usually lies in your ability to play rhythm on the guitar. So today we're going to look at 3 methods we can use to improve our rhythm playing. Now quickly, we should probably get out the way. There is a small misconception around what rhythm playing actually is on the guitar. Many amateurish guitarists think rhythm playing just means playing chords, when it's actually a lot more sophisticated than that. Your ability to be good at rhythm is all about your ability to play any note, whether that's just one note or multiple notes at a time, on time in the beat or on the groove. It's not really about playing a chord. It's not really about playing one note. It's about being able to play those notes on time with the groove. So how can we get better at this? What can we do to improve our ability to hit notes on time? Luckily, we don't actually have to learn any new shapes, any new scales, any new triads, or any new chord shapes or anything like that. It's all about using what we already know and making it sound a lot more musical. So how can we do that? I'm going to play down this little loop for you guys first, right? So I have this little loop going. It's a kind of like 2-5 in the key of G major. It's like A minor to like D major. It's a cool little kind of groovy type of loop going on. So what can we do to practice our rhythm over loops? Instead of kind of being boring and just using a metronome all the time, we can make improving our rhythm a lot more interesting and fun to do, right? So, the first thing you want to try and practice is going between different types of subdivisions, right? If you don't know what a subdivision is, it's basically like the difference between a half note, a quarter note, an eighth note, that kind of stuff there. So I want you to get a loop going or a backing track and just feel out the pulse, right? This one's kind of just going like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So once you kind of got that going, try going back and forth between that pulse and then it doubled, right? So let's give that a go. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... You don't even have to play any notes to do this. Just mute the strings. Again, rhythm isn't about playing chords or any given note. It's about how you hit the note on time. And you can do that with just muting your strings, right? So practice going back and forth between different subdivisions. So again, we had this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So that's a really basic way to do that. You can make it a little bit more interesting and level that up even more by going between triplets between them, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, triplet, 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 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, triplet, triplet, 1, 2, 3, 4, triplet, triplet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... I'll be honest, that one is more difficult, going between the basic pulse and then to triplets and then to the double pulse. It's interesting to do that. It will definitely make you a more rhythmic player. Now the next thing that's going to be really important to level up your rhythm playing is tapping your foot. This is what's going to help you build that internal sense of rhythm, where you don't have to rely on the drummer to provide rhythm for you. You don't have to rely on the bassist. You're actually going to be strong at creating your own sense of rhythm now, which is going to make you sound a lot more professional and a lot less amateurish, right? So I don't know if you can kind of, if I tap hard enough, it kind of shakes the camera. You can kind of see the screen shake a bit, right? But what I want you to do is tap your foot along to the beat, and then just go back and forth between like a root note and like a scale tone below, right? So let's try that. So the whole time I'm tapping my foot. I'm not really playing anything it's hard to speak while doing this. I'm not really playing much complicated, right? I'm not playing any fancy phrases, but I'm making sure that I'm tapping my foot the whole time to keep myself grounded within the beat. And that's going to make us sound a lot less amateurish and a lot more professional, even with just simple ideas. Again, you don't have to play like really fast, fancy phrases. You can just play a root note. As long as it lands dead on the beat every single time, you're going to sound professional, right? And again, it becomes so much easier to do that when you're grounded towards the beat. And the best way to do that is to tap your foot. So I recommend combining both of those two together. Tap your foot, and then practice doing different subdivisions with your foot staying the same pulse, right? So my foot is currently tapping at this kind of rate. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That's what my foot is tapping right now. Let's see if I can pick with my hand a different subdivision while this is going with my foot, right? So I go 1. The ability to do that, to hold two different rhythms at once, a slower rhythm with your foot, and then a faster rhythm with your hand, that's going to transform your playing. That's going to make you a much more professional sounding guitarist when you can do that on time. Now, another thing we can do to improve our rhythm is to think of the guitar like a drum kit. You can actually play drum grooves on the guitar. This is kind of cool. This is actually a fun way to improve your rhythm rather than just kind of practicing to the metronome. The metronome is a bit boring and robotic sometimes. This feels a lot more lively. So obviously when we listen to a drum groove, it's mainly made up of a kick drum, like the bass drum, the lower kind of sounding part, a snare drum, which is kind of in the mid-range, and then like the hi-hats or the cymbals, which is the high range, right? There's kind of just 3 elements that it takes to make a nice sounding drum groove, right? We're going to try and mimic that with our guitar strings. We're just going to make sure that we mute everything, and we're going to try and play a drum groove by using the lower, thicker strings as a kick drum, and then the higher strings, the thinner ones, as either a snare or a hi-hat. You can actually mimic a drum groove pretty well by doing this. So you want to imagine again, the higher strings are quite snappy. They can imitate a snare quite well, whereas the lower ones are a lot more suited for a kick drum. So let's see what kind of drum beat I can put over the top of this groove, right? So I go... kind of like beatboxing, but instead of doing weird sounds with your mouth, you're doing it with the strings on the guitar. And again, this is going to enhance your rhythm. It's going to give you the ability to kind of create ideas and improvise with rhythm, rather than just kind of being boring and robotic practicing to a metronome all day long. This is a lot more interesting, right? And let's see how I can again change the subdivisions on the drum beat that I'm creating. So instead of going... Again, I'm kind of improvising a beat there. And maybe that gets a bit boring for you after a while, just doing the muted strings. Then you can start incorporating that and combining that with some of the fretted notes. So I go. Again, I'm just playing everything there inside this first position pentatonic box. We all know what this is. We're not learning anything new here. We're just becoming more creative with the rhythm that we apply inside this box. And again, the key to sounding really professional is not really in learning all these fancy shapes and chords. It's making sure that you can play everything on time. And to do that, you need to practice your rhythm. So, to recap, make sure you're practicing going back and forth between different subdivisions. Feel out the main pulse, double it. Try going back and forth between triplets. It's difficult, but it will definitely improve your playing. You'll get the hang of it after a while as well. Secondly, make sure you're always tapping your foot. It's going to keep you grounded towards that beat. And it's going to allow you to kind of improvise phrases that sound more musical. Instead of kind of just wandering off and playing forever, tapping your foot keeps you grounded and helps you realize that you actually need to end your phrase. It's going to make you more comfortable with holding a note like that. Like, I know when to come back in time because I'm tapping my foot. Again, it keeps you grounded to the music. It gives you that internal sense of rhythm rather than relying upon a drummer to provide it for you. And finally, practice using the guitar like a drum kit. Think of the lower strings like a kick drum, the higher ones, the snappier ones like a snare or a hi-hat. And again, you can do this while listening along to your favorite songs. Just try and be the drummer. Like, let's say you really like an AC/DC song, right? Like Back in Black. Try and be the drummer to that song by using the guitar. Just mimic the drum beat with your guitar by using the lower ones as a kick and the higher ones as a hi-hat and snare. Again, this is a more interesting way to improve the rhythm. You keep doing all these three things, keep consistently practicing them. I guarantee you, you're going to sound like a more professional sounding guitarist. And the beautiful thing about this, you don't really have to learn much new. It's not any kind of complicated shapes or scales that we have to learn. It's just learning how to make what we already know sound a lot better. If you enjoyed this video, hit like, check out the subscribe button as well. I'd appreciate that. We also have a school community for guitarists like yourself. I recommend you join. And if you are interested in learning how to apply and learn every single triad shape on the guitar, connect them all together with a really easy method, check out my one-on-one triad masterclass. There is also a link below in the description for that.